Hi guys, my name's Connor. I'm a science fiction, political, and philosophy nerd, a Marine Corps and law enforcement veteran, a never-Trump Republican, and an enjoyer of alternative media and online politics. There is a debate between a friend of mine, Corbin Sayles, another friend of mine, Doghouse, also known as Vince Wilson, a guy named Rattlesnake or something like that, who apparently has a shitload of subs and is actually pretty popular on the right wing, and then of course our dear friend, Andrew Wilson, formerly known as Big Papa Fascist and Debate Pervert. So we're going to go ahead and watch them debating whether or not Trump is concentrating power and whether or not that's a good thing. I'm going to approach this, since I'm friends with Doghouse and I'm friends with Corbin Sayles, I'm going to approach this as I'm seeing how my friends did in a debate, and I'm going to give feedback for the line of argumentation that I would have made had I been there, because I was supposed to be there, but I was in the hospital at the time. Let's go.
Executive, and if so, sometimes they might agree that the executive should have more power, and so then you can have a conversation about whether or not that should be the case. So we'll go ahead and start opening statements, and we'll do every other, so we'll just go across the screen and start with Andrew. 2 minutes, sir. You're on mute.
Oh, you're muted. You're muted, Andrew.
Already. All right, so I'll make it short and sweet. A thing I hear often is that Trump's a dictator, he's a Nazi, he's a fascist, he's evil, he's mean, blah, 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 blah. He's a threat
to
our very democracy.
True.
When pushed on these claims, though, progressive scumbags usually talk about tariffs. That's usually what they do. Like,
oh, okay. I know I'm supposed to be watching the debate, but I'm already getting angry. How about trying to overthrow the government on January 6th in the false elector scheme? How about the dismissal of random administrative officials for reasons of like insufficient loyalty? How about backstabbing one of the greatest generals in recent American history, General James Mattis, who thought that Donald Trump was an effing R-slur? How about setting up the withdrawal of Afghanistan that resulted in a whole bunch of dead people? What about what else would it? So obviously we have the tariffs, which is congressional authority delegated to the presidency. What about increasing the border patrol to be maximally huge? What about deporting people without due process to torture centers in Central America? What about drone striking a fucking Venezuelan boat without releasing the intel for why that was a justified action just within the past week, without an authorization of use of military force? I mean, that's just off the top of my head. I'm not even trying. That's like me slowly waking up from like I'm just getting my caffeine in. How about all that shit?
Like all these tariffs and stupid shit like that. They never actually tell us how he's a Nazi, fascist, dictator.
I can.
Evil, centralized power, wants to have a fourth term, third, and sixth term. I never actually hear any of the reasons. Instead,
how about Steve Bannon saying that he should run for a third term and they support him for a third term? How about Trump memeing about that? How about Trump saying that he wants to run for a third term and that he needs to get there first, but realistically they're doing legalistic explorations for how he can run as a third term? How about lawyers and MAGA simps and MAGA dick suckers saying that he should run a third term and this is how they would do it? And they specifically highlight what they think would be an exception to, I think, the 22nd and 12th Amendment of the United States, where they're trying to find exceptions to the Constitution of the United States that are clearly invalid. How about that shit?
Telling us all how Trump is an evil authoritarian dictator. They bring up everything except how he is one. And I doubt the debate tonight will be any different. Our opponents actually want to say he's so bad they can taste it. They want to say he's a fascist so bad they can taste it. They want to say he's an evil authoritarian dictator so bad they can taste it, but they're not going to, because they can't, because they're full of shit.
God, I wish I wasn't pooping blood at this exact moment.
And
I'm not kidding. I was in the hospital with an intestinal infection, and I was actually dying from an intestinal infection at this exact moment.
Even though they probably said this, by the way, a million times on their channels. I bet you we go to both their channels, we'll hear the word fascist, dictator, Nazi, man. I bet you we'll hear all that shit. And the one place we're not going to hear it is here tonight, though.
Oh, shut the fuck up.
That's I bet you we won't hear it tonight. Because when the rubber meets the road, they fall flat every single time. So tonight's debate is on if Trump is centralizing power, if that's a good thing or not a good thing. I don't see how he's centralizing power. He basically has what's afforded to him by Article 2 of the Constitution and some legislation after that, like the Patriot Act, both of which he had nothing to do with. Many of the other legislative powers that he would have, he doesn't actually have anything to do with. They were there before he ever came into office. He complies with the Supreme Court of the United States. He often fights with the lower courts, which presidents tend to do, and he has every right to do so. So I've never really heard a compelling case for this supposed accumulation of power beyond his office. Checks and balances are still in place. There isn't a constitutional crisis last time I looked. So what these guys
What about the false elector scheme, Andrew?
are talking about, I have no idea. But what they're not actually going to be talking about is how he's centralizing power. They're going to key in on points which are completely irrelevant. But not to worry, guys. I'm going to bring it right back to this. I promise you.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. Corbin.
There's a lot of different aspects, I guess, of Trump's authoritarianism that you could talk about. I kind of want to key in on specifically, I think, the erosion of federal and state powers under his administration, whether it be through things like the federalization of the National Guard in LA.
True.
Or quid pro quos with Eric Adams to enact his agenda on immigration.
Damn.
That's kind of the area I wanted to focus on today. I'm not as keened in on tariffs or whether or not Trump has the ability to enact those. That's kind of a separate question. But yeah, I guess that's kind of the main points I want to hit on is how he's trying to enact federal law on a state level.
All right. Awesome. Jake, 2 minutes.
Fire W says, did I see your notes about Kemalism? Kemalism? I did, and I have a note in order to research it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for having me today, Tom Foolery. It's good to see you. It's even good to be here with the libs today. It's good to see you guys too, libs.
Yeah, good to see you.
So I am not American. I'm Australian. I don't
It's not
exactly
good to
live
see
in
you,
Britain.
Libs. Sorry.
Christ, I wish I would have been here for this.
Sorry, I didn't catch you.
I don't exactly live and breathe the politics, but from an outside point looking in, I think that Trump is doing actually a really good job. The idea that he's some sort of authoritarian is nonsense, and I'm looking forward to getting into some definitions of what exactly you guys mean by authoritarian. What I see is a leader doing what he was elected to do, essentially. I mean, taking back the power from entrenched elites, NGOs, and bureaucrats who are never chosen by the people. Few quick points. I mean, Trump doesn't necessarily look to me as though he's consolidating power anywhere near the levels that his critics claim, especially with claims like fascist and authoritarian and the likes. He's cutting down on bureaucracies that run the country without accountability. Under Biden, elected officials were making the big decision.
Oh, he meant to say unelected officials. We have to do it. We got to paint. We got to paint, guys. It's paint time. Paint stream, paint stream, paint stream, paint stream. First, he says Doobie has been incredibly reasonable. Almost everything I see from the guy. The hate is majority misplaced for this guy. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen Doobie do anything too crazy. I think his Red Sea crisis take is batshit, but that's fine. We're all allowed to have cringe takes every now and then. Melody says the Aaron versus Pisco about the Prime Kai debate was insane. She is a crazy good manipulator. Based. I love it when a girl manipulates people. Eric Dom says, I agree with nearly all of your prescriptions except for the gun ones, not because I disagree with the latter ones, but because I don't know how much about the pros and cons of high gun ownership versus law. Okay, we'll do that too. That might be an appropriate drawing for later. Let's try to focus on the substance of the debate. Otherwise, we're only going to get 20 minutes into the content, as I am wont to do. So, all right, this is fascism. All right, this is fascism. I'm so happy I get to draw this right now. I'm so happy because I've talked about it so many times, and I've never really drawn it, truth be told. Is there a way to make him have like a more manly chest? I could give him some pectorals, right? Some pectorals. Some man boobs. I'll do that. All right, then I should give him beefier arms, but we're just gonna go for we're just going for descriptive accuracy, not for necessarily like the best human drawing ever. All right, so government. All right, Political corporatism, which I agree with, all right? Political corporatism is treating the state, treating the nation, okay, as a human body. And so you need to come up with your metaphors for how this works within your own head, okay? And the metaphors that I often hear, or I used to hear when I was researching this, is that, as an example, the government is the brain, all right? That's why I put it near the head. Then, let's say that we had a little heart, okay? The little heart. Let's draw another line. This is the economy, okay? The economy is ultimately what is required in order to keep a functioning state. You need to have a pumping economy, all right? Let's say that the bones of the state, or the bones of the nation, are like your culture, okay? So let's write that down. Culture. And what's like another example of a facet of society, I guess? Like let's do the digestive system, okay? The digestive system could be, you could analogize this 10 different ways, but the digestive system would be how you eliminate waste. So let's say it's like, and I hate to say this, like, I'm not trying to say this like in a Nazi way. I'm trying to say this in a normal way, but like hospice care, insane asylums, public hospitals, all that kind of stuff. And this isn't to like degrade these institutions. This is actually trying to enforce it, because if you don't have a digestive tract, if you don't have the ability to deal with the dead or deal with the insane or the infirm or whatever, you're going to have an unhealthy society. The same way that if your economy isn't pumping properly, you're not going to do well. The same way that if you don't have a culture that's pro-social, that is actually trying to make the, it's trying to stabilize and make the world a better place, then you're not making like a good society, I suppose. And with the government, if you have a bad government, then it can dysregulate the entire system and destroy the entire system. And then let's say that we have like white blood cells, the immune system. I guess I'm gonna just make like a little, what would be, I guess I'll just make a dot. Let's say that we have the immune system and it's a white blood cell, and you guys can just remember this, but the white blood cell is like law enforcement, right? White blood cell is law enforcement because they attack viruses and other pathogens that will destroy the system if they're left unchecked. And let's say that the skin, let me use a square. Let's say we do, that's not good. I need the line tool, I guess. And then let's say the skin is like the military, okay? The bones are culture because that's what you're defending. But the skin is the military because it's the protective layer that protects everything that's underneath. And so the whole point of this is that if you conceptualize skin is military, if you conceptualize this properly, this is actually a perfectly decent metaphor for the way that a society should operate. And what fascists say is that within liberal societies, within dysgenic societies, within societies that have bad governance or a ill working economy or a disruptive culture or bad skin or no white blood cells or no digestive system, what happens is that the body becomes dysregulated to the point that it becomes self-destructive and eventually the nation state dies. And so what fascists try to do, because this concept of political corporatism, is fairly robust, is they say that it is the job of the fascist not to care necessarily about how you get into power over these institutions. It's the job of the fascist to get into power over these institutions and then make them good for the entire political corporative body. That's fascism. And I know you're like, damn, that kind of sounds like wholesome. But the problem with fascism is that they don't care about how they seize power. And so oftentimes the way that they seize power is dubious or evil, or it destroys the very thing that it's trying to protect. It destroys the skin or the bones or the heart or the brain. And so that's kind of my argument against fascists, is that since they don't really care about how you achieve power, they just want to achieve and maintain power, they ultimately destroy that which they seek to protect. And so yeah, that's fascism, bro. So I'm going to put, this is realistically political corporatism. Political corporatism is, it's not like, the reason why people use political corporatism in order to describe the state seizing power over the economy, and this is like the perfect example, by the way. This would have been the perfect example if I was in this debate yesterday, or if I was in this debate last week, is that the way that fascists oftentimes seize power over the economy is they get into government and then they exclusively deal with people who are sympathetic to their aims within the economy, and they create cronyism. And Trump's crypto scam, him rug pulling his own people, him allowing foreign nations to donate cash to him for like international influence, is the exact way that the Nazi party of 1930s and 40s Germany operated. If you were a fan of the Nazi party, you got your contracts, you got your deals, you got your government subsidies, you got this, you got that. If you were a critic of the fascist government, you didn't get dick. And if anything, you got overly regulated and burdened by the state to the point that you were destroyed and no longer economically viable. So yeah, so fuck that. And Donald Trump absolutely does all this shit. And the crypto scam is the perfect example of how the government seizes influence over the heartbeat of the nation by manipulating the economy through nepotism and cronyism. Culture, same thing with culture. The reason why Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg and a whole bunch of critics, Bill Gates, massive critics of the Trump administration, is because they're trying to, the government is trying to influence culture and the culture is trying to influence government. Same thing with the skin, like the military. Him replacing high-level leadership with his sycophants is him dysregulating the skin, but making it more amenable to his seizure of power. So yeah, so fuck this. We're already off to a bad start, and I haven't even let Corbin or Vince respond yet. So we'll obviously give them an opportunity to respond. But if you don't understand this idea, hopefully you understand this idea now. This is like, if you want to fight a fascist, it's vitally important that you understand political corporatism, and it's vitally important that you understand flexible authoritarianism. Political corporatism. I should probably do a flexible authoritarianism map, but for the sake of flow, I'm going to continue the content, and I'll draw flexible authoritarianism in a bit.
That's the real deep state. So Trump is just following through on campaign promises to dismantle it. To the extent that he's consolidating power, I don't think there's anything unusual. Every president does this, and I feel as though the leftists do this just as much, and they're just grumpy because they're not really used to seeing Republicans do this. And the third one, I'd say, to the extent, if you guys can...
Kirsty asked about red flag laws. I actually like red flag laws. We can talk about it later.
Can bring up some examples, and if you guys can convince us that he is consolidating power in various different areas, then I would like to see why that's wrong and why that's actually a bad thing, particularly in terms of the border. I mean, I think that the gentleman before me brought up that one, so that'll be an interesting one to go into. And as somebody from the great land of Australia down under,
Connor, can you admit it's just your financial incentive to be unprincipled in your choice of association and therefore do so? It's not a massive bullet to bite. For example, Dan Saltman is liked. When the fuck is that ever a principle? Sorry, you guys are pissing me off. It's so annoying. I feel like I repeat myself all the fucking time. Because you guys have the same talking points all the fucking time. Where do you see this principle implemented in my content? You're saying the principle is you're saying this is what you're saying. I'm going to put this in like level 72. Don't associate. Hold on. Let me make it big. Don't associate with people with bad behavior who have different principles than you. This is the principle that you're saying that I have. Who have, wait, hold on. Don't associate with people with bad behaviors who, wait, don't associate with people who with bad behaviors who have different principles than you. I'm going to fucking raffle stomp you right now, okay? Who have different principles than you. This is the principle that you say I've had. So let's go ahead and check and see if I've ever lived that principle. Okay? Let's go back 5 years, because I have 5 years of content. Like 2 or 3 years ago, I moved all the politics channel to a secondary channel, and then that's kind of this shit. But let's go ahead and see where it's at. So we got Faraday Speaks, liberal, progressive. We have totally different values on a healthy chunk of stuff. Vosh, Lolicon, you know, spoke with Vosh, hung out with Vosh. Destiny, you hate him now. Roserist and I, Roserist is a fucking sock them. Talking about Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson and I are 90% aligned, but you probably think he's a bad guy. Here's me talking to Mike from PA, one of the biggest fucking pieces of shit on the internet. Here's Gassim, a Sudanese progressive who I really enjoy talking to. Fundamentally good human being, but we massively disagree on politics. This is Endernax. He's become like a Christian nationalist, groiper, larper, dickhead. Despite the fact that he's rude as shit on social media, I still love Endernax and think he's a, you know, like overall, he pays his bills, he takes care of his wife, he takes care of his family, but he's effectively a fucking Nazi right now. And I'm friends with Endernax. Lauren Southern was like queen of the dissident right, queen of, you know, Nazi light, like Nazi light propaganda bullshit. We're internet friends. I don't hear you bitching about fucking Lauren Southern. Here's Extreme Dad. He was accused of sexual impropriety in Vosh's Discord. That was largely bullshit. I'll give him that, but he's not a nice person. Dylan Burns, Riley Grace Rochong. Riley Grace Rochong is one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. We massively disagree on politics. Same thing with Dylan Burns. Here's Gassim again. Here's Dylan Blay. Here's Hippie Dippy Debates. Here's Larry Sharp, a libertarian who I could not be more antithetical to. I genuinely hate his fucking worldview. Here's me talking to the serfs. Are you getting a fucking picture of it yet? Do you understand that this has never been my principle? Here's Ico Rules being a bitch. Here's this fucking pro-cop guy being a piece of shit, AJW. Here's me talking to Big Papa Fascist. Here's me talking to a Canadian counter-terror expert. Where the fuck has it ever been my policy? Here's a schizo-religious gal. Here's some more liberals. Here's a libertarian. Here's Nick Fuentes. 2 years ago, I talked to Nick Fuentes, the king of the Christian nationalist Nazis. Here's a libertarian lawyer. Have I made my fucking point yet? You keep saying that it's like, it's your principle to never associate with bad. Here's Carissa Avalone, by the way. I'm going to be a little mean. I'm sorry, Hunter. I'm sorry, Carissa. This is Carissa Avalone, who was a normie at the time, but she fucking left her family to go be a pornographic actress to get a fucking piss gangbang. Right? Now, I didn't know that at the time, truth be told, and I'm not going to be her friend. But if Carissa Avalone was like, hey, Connor, I want to do content together. I want to talk about XYZ topic. Let's talk about it. Here's Mr. Girl. Mr. Girl is the closest thing to a pedophile you can get without actually being a pedophile. He steelmans pedophilic positions constantly. And by the way, I'm not talking to food shops, not out of some, you know, like crazy principled position. It's because I believe that her perspective, like if she wanted to debate economics or the military industrial complex or fascism, then like maybe we could work out the levels of our debate. But if she wants to debate whether or not it's okay to look at kids, then no, I'm not going to have that debate. Your position is beneath contempt. Here's Brianna Wu. She's like the biggest Zio shill on the fucking planet. So anyways, where the fuck is this principle that you say that I've held, that I'm betraying? Don't associate with people with bad behaviors who have different principles than you. Where the fuck was this ever the case? Please tell me. Where the fuck did I ever live or ever indicate that this is how I was going to operate within Twitch and YouTube politics? Please fucking tell me. So no. So no, I don't agree with you. Fuck your perspective.
And who's traveled the world a lot. I will say this. Countries like mine, the UK, and much of Europe have been wrecked by weak borders and liberal globalist policies. And America is somewhat of the last frontier, as I see it. If Trump succeeds, he actually sets an example that the Western world desperately needs. So I don't think he's a dictator in the making. I think he's doing what the left has been doing and has done for themselves. And the only difference is this time it's not on their terms. So with that, I'll get on to the next one.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. And then also, Corbin, double check your mic. I'm not positive that you're on the wrong mic, but you might be. And then Vince, go ahead. 2 minutes,
Should
sir.
be on the right one.
Yes, sir. All right. So has Donald Trump consolidated power? Let's keep focused.
Sorry, real quick. I'm going to listen to Doghouse and I'm going to give him my undivided attention in a moment. Gen X says, did you see Dan's tweet yesterday from Cuomo? Wouldn't it be hilarious if Mandami lost because of Hassan Piker? Unironically, I wanted to post that meme where it's like, please God, make this happen because it would be so fucking funny. But then I got busy with something else. If the Republican and if Eric Adams, is that the current mayor who's running as an independent? If Eric Adams and the Republican were like, oh shit, Mandami's actually a massive piece of shit for hanging out with Hassan Piker, we're going to drop out and endorse Cuomo. And then Cuomo won, I would laugh so hard, I would cry. I would laugh so hard. I don't think that Eric Adams will. I don't think that the Republican will. I think they have their own interests for why they're going to stay in the race. But I would cry from laughing so hard.
Focus on this. This is at the core of the debate right now, not whether or not necessarily Donald Trump is in fact an authoritarian, whether or not he is a fascist. That is the topic of the debate. So has Donald Trump consolidated power? The answer is absolutely yes, through emergency powers, lawsuits.
I also like this assertion, and one of the perfect things, Doghouse just said it too. The emergency powers, the use of the Aliens and Seditions Act improperly in order to declare Trenda Aragua like a invading military. That's obviously an abuse of the intent of the original law.
Even threats of military force. Trump has pushed the boundaries of executive authority. His intentions were clear when he stated, I have the right to do anything I want to do. I'm the president of the United States. Each time power shifts away from Congress and the courts, we inch closer to authoritarian rule. Notice what I said, inch closer to authoritarian rule. A system where one man makes the laws and is accountable to no one but himself. That's it.
All right.
Closer to authoritarian rule. A system where one man makes the laws and is accountable to no one but himself.
I would be okay with this if he specifically cited the 2022 tweet where we can ignore the Constitution because of the massive electoral voter fraud that still hasn't been proven. And also if he paired it with he who saves his nation breaks no law, I would be okay with this statement. But I do think that if you're going to debate fascism, you need to understand political corporatism and flexible authoritarianism.
That's it.
All right.
Sorry, is my mic okay now? Or
Yeah, it sounds good. Yeah. Okay.
all right. Yeah, sorry, I'm on my mobile mic. It's kind of crappy. I don't have my regular one with me right now.
No problem. So yeah, for the most part, I'll let you guys lead the conversation. If there's parts that I want to clarify, please allow me to jump in for a minute and just clarify things. Sometimes for you guys, sometimes for the audience, sometimes just for myself because I'm not all that right. But with you guys having the claim, I will let Vince go ahead and jump us off.
Sure. Andrew, you said that Trump did not defy the Supreme Court. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, what higher court rulings have been issued by the Supreme Court which he's defying?
Well, I'm asking you. You said he did not defy the Supreme Court. So what do you mean by he has not defied the Supreme Court? What are you saying by that?
To my knowledge, the Supreme Court has not issued any rulings in which he is not complying with.
Okay, that's fundamentally incorrect. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, they ordered that they facilitate the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia in an expedient manner, and a court was on the verge of holding them in contempt for violating the court order. So that's inaccurate right there. Okay.
Right. So what about Abrego Garcia when I believe
Boom! Thank you, Doghouse. Go for it.
on April 10th, the Supreme Court ruled they needed to facilitate the return of the administration, and then the administration then dragged their feet, ignoring Judge Paul Zinnes to return them.
True, Doghouse. True. All right. I'm liking this so far. I need to use the restroom, and like I said, I was literally in the hospital last week with an intestinal issue, so I am not ignoring my body when it tells me I need to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Chairpoints is going to lovingly react. I need to get like a face for like Chairpoints. Like I need to get something that I need to like decorate this pillow, this like magnetic pillow. I need to decorate the magnetic pillow with a face so it can react in my absence. But I'll be right back.
It was not until June 6th, months later, that they ended up returning Abrego Garcia after they said that they had tried and dragged their feet saying they would. It took Judge Zinnes multiple times telling them they needed to facilitate the return, and they did not facilitate the return. So would you agree then on that case that he defied the Supreme Court?
I'm really confused. Hang on, I'm really confused. It sounded like you just said the guy was returned.
Oh, so wait, but the original claim was that he did not defy the Supreme Court, right?
I'm confused how he defied the Supreme Court when he returned the guy.
Gotcha. So then he did not defy the Supreme Court initially, then is what you're saying then, right? So you would acknowledge that he.
So all branches of government have various processes in which they go down, right? And there was a process which was involved with this. They went through the process and then they complied with the Supreme Court and returned him.
What was the process here? Judge Zinnes said to return him, and they did not. Did they not?
It seems like it was after the
They
fact
did,
that
didn't they? Didn't they return him?
It was after.
Didn't they in fact return him? Didn't they in fact return him?
Didn't they defy the Supreme Court? Did they not defy the Supreme Court?
Did they
answer my question? Did they defy the? Did they? As soon as you answer mine, I'll answer yours. Did you defy? You can't answer my question. You said after I called you out on it. You said they didn't defy him. Okay. So Andrew Wilson is redefining how we're talking about defying the Supreme Court. It was clearly defined.
I can answer my question. Did they return him?
Them returning it does not change or negate the fact
yes or no. Remember how I said no? Yes or no, fucker?
Oh, it's not a yes or no. Hey, it's not a yes or no answer.
Oh my God,
I can go ahead and say
you stupid loser fuck. Answer my fucking question. Yes or no? Did they return him?
Well, he is return him or not? Try to start with a yes or no and then give the explanation
question.
After.
I don't want it. Here's what I don't want in this debate. I don't want mealy mouth bullshit. Just answer the fucking questions and I'll answer yours. That's how a debate should work. Now answer my fucking question. Did they return the guy or not?
Yes.
Yes, but that doesn't change the fact that they defied the Supreme Court. Yes, exactly. That's the problem here. And that Andrew, when he realized, because he sat here and said initially that we're not going to bring any examples. Once I brought an example, he got scared and realized, oh, I have to pivot to say, well, they eventually brought him back, but it doesn't change the fact that they defied the Supreme Court. They initially defied it, and you were proven wrong immensely when I said that. You weren't prepared for Supreme Facts, were you, Andrew?
So they went through the process and then they went.
You got me. They went through the process and then returned him. Oh my God! Constitutional crisis. Holy shit! What an authoritarian dictator! You got me.
It was Andrew.
Andrew.
It was
shit.
After.
Shit.
It was after the Supreme Court.
I quit this debate. Oh my God! I'm fucking destroyed. Fucking idiot. They returned him. They went through a process. Yes, that's how it works.
This is hilarious. He's trying to redefine how define works. Do we need to pull up the definition of define, Andrew?
Well, I think at this point we would have to say that
define.
Because it sounds like
definition for definition.
Vince, you're saying that they defied the courts for a time and then eventually abided by the court order. Correct, Vince?
Sure. But
okay.
The question was, Andrew asked,
sure, exactly. So you're
ultimately,
saying
that they initially defied the Supreme Court.
You're saying for that period of time, what was it,
yes.
2-3 months you're saying they defied the courts for that period of time, and Andrew's saying, okay, they eventually got it. So Andrew, do you agree that they defied the courts?
Doesn't change the fact they defied the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I think that when you have court rulings, especially and new court rulings, especially, there's usually a process for compliance. So this will happen on every level of government, whether or not this is executive branch or not. There's going to be a process in which to comply. And I think they went through a process for compliance with that ruling. They wanted to exhaust all of their avenues on it. I would do the same exact thing if I was an executive. When they couldn't exhaust anymore, they followed through with what the order was. This is how branches of government work. I don't know what's wrong with you, bro. That's how they work.
Yeah, that's total evasion of the point. The point is that when the federal government, the federal judiciary gives you a ruling, you either appeal or comply. Don't delay. Like you can appeal it to a higher court, absolutely. But I don't even think they appealed it. I think they just delayed. Like the judge almost found them in contempt multiple times.
Yeah, the way it works is that when someone sits there and a judge says to bring them back and they drag their feet after numerous times of being told to bring them back. And by the way that they were arguing this was they were arguing on the case of saying that this is facilitate. And so they argued on that merit alone. But the problem is they continued to drag their feet. So again, you want to pivot off with it, that's fine. We can talk about the judicial injunctions if you like, about how they're defying those injunctions, namely the Harvard Research Grant funding, federal grant and loans frozen, tariffs under the International Emergency Economics Power Act. We can talk about that, which is a big theme of this administration.
You're just reading your talking points. Let me bring up the next point then. I'll bring up the next point since we gave you guys the first.
You're not going to engage on that, are you? Okay, let's go on to the next point.
Hang on. We'll get back to it. But don't you think it's fair that if you get a point to bring up, that we can bring up a point as well? And it was something which was mentioned in the.
I'd like you to address my point, but if you want to go.
Okay, so anyway, you brought up what happened in the LA riots as part of your point for authoritarianism. This is over to Corbin.
I did, or Corbin? Okay.
Corbin, whose name is not yours. So anyway, Corbin, you brought this up as though this was some authoritarian act by the Trump administration. Are you aware, like we watched those riots every single night on sometimes as many as 15, 20 cameras at a time, watching what was going on, watching the what a pivot. I'm not
because again, I think this is hysterical. No. Andrew, I just called Andrew out on 3 other particular issues. Let him ask his question. Andrew just totally pivoted over to the LA riot.
Let him ask his question first. Let him ask his question first.
Let him ask his question. Real quick. Let me. Yeah, let Andrew.
I mean, are you sure? It seems that the Vince is very upset that we're allowed to have points and he's allowed to have points. I'm sorry about that, Vince. But anyway,
I asked you to address my points that you are running away from. You're running away from them. Why are you running away from them?
Did I not tell you that we would come? Did I not tell you that we could come right back to this? You get a point, we get a point. Isn't that fair?
But it works where you address my point. You're okay. Anyway, that's fine. Run away, Andrew.
Yeah. This is where guys debates like kind of get away from me a little bit. I'm listening, but like I don't mind you trying to hold his feet to the fire. And I also don't mind you pointing out that he's being evasive, especially if he doesn't return after you point out that he's being evasive. However, I think that oftentimes with these we have like a dual responsibility when we're doing debates. The responsibility is to articulate our worldview, fight them as aggressively as possible, make the other person look like an asshole, make us look smart, et cetera, like do well within the debate. But the other responsibility, in my opinion, is making the conversation entertaining. And so for me, I would rather see at this point, I'm perfectly fine with you pointing out that he's being evasive. However, I would rather see Corbin and him fight about the LA riots. And then once they're done fighting with the LA riots, you come back in and say, hey, I made 3 points that you haven't addressed yet. Can you please address those? Because I feel like they're like fundamental to pointing out that Trump is an authoritarian dickbag. And maybe that'll happen. Let's see.
Go ahead, run away, Andrew.
Okay,
go ahead.
Great.
Go ahead.
So, yeah. Okay. Run away from this point, Vince. You're just running away. You're just filibustering, making sure that your partner can't ever respond because you're a fucking coward. Anyway,
you're running away from addressing the point because you're afraid of.
I don't like meta conversations about debates.
Of actually engaging with the facts of the case because you don't like engaging with the facts.
Rudely interrupted by your dork.
Oh, beefies. Go ahead.
Doobie says just say R slurred. No, I can't. So Valor Media Network allows me to do schizo internet politics because let's face it, it brings in some cash and it's funny. It's funny to them that they have this almost 40-year-old man going into the world of online politics to debate schizophrenics. And frankly, I think it's a metric leader on the channel, truth be told. because they have a bunch of 40 to 60-year-old wholesome men and women trying to teach themselves and each other about how to be a decent person in the world. But the truth is that that's not as fun as schizophrenic online political content. But there are some members of the Valor Media Network who are r-slur negative. They do not enjoy the r-slur the way that I do. They have a different perspective on the r-slur. And so as a result, I have to minimize / try to avoid my addiction to the r-slur. So no, sorry.
I would like to have you actually address this. So we were watching these on the cams each night, and we saw that the police were clearly standing down. They were not enforcing the order of law. We come to find out later that there was many NGOs which were funding these riots, many NGOs. In fact, the whole thing was funded by NGOs, especially their famous Day of Rage. Why is it that you think that Trump shouldn't have sent in the Marines in order to bring law and order back to Los Angeles when this was going on? Why?
Okay. Let me show you why. Okay. Because these are not existential threats to liberty the way that a central federal army is. Okay. And paint points. Paint points time. Painter points. So when it comes to the military, the way that I understand it is that we got the federal military, we got the National Guards, we got a bunch of those, and then we have local law enforcement. And there is a buttload more local law enforcement than there is the National Guard, right? The National Guard correlates with the states. They're effectively the army of each respective state. Bear in mind that we are a collection of states that originally was designed to be semi-sovereign and autonomous entities. So let's say that we have the federal military, and let's bring it down to 22. Let's make our box an appropriate size. And I'll keep talking while I'm drawing. But effectively, the federal military should absolutely be an item of last resort. And the reason why is because the chain of command for a city that's experiencing a civil disturbance is, first of all, the mayor, then the governor, and then the governor controls the National Guard. And so because you don't want the federal military stomping down on civil unrest whenever it occurs, because effectively what you do is you incentivize local problems to not be handled at the local level, and then not only for them to not be handled at the local level, but for local leaders to know that if they fuck up, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, because the federal government's going to come bail you out. So it actually stops the responsiveness of local governments from dealing with the problems that they need to deal with. And the problem with that, of course, is that let's say that the mayor of LA lets LA burn to the ground. He's like a Nero figure. He just wants it to burn to the ground. And so as a result, local citizens are left to the wolves, kind of the way that they were during the Rodney King riots. Well, what's going to happen is a shitload of people are going to move out of LA, right? They're going to lose economically productive, socially productive people. They're going to say, fuck you. You didn't respond to this crisis in a timely manner that actually protected the good law-abiding citizens of this community. Therefore, we're going to vote with our feet and we're going to leave. And so as a result, what ends up happening is people vote with their feet, or they vote democratically and they say the mayor's incompetent. He didn't respond to this crisis. Therefore, F him, right? When you send in the federal troops, you're preventing that process from occurring. You're also preventing the process of, you're also preventing the process of a governor being able to respond. A governor should be able to respond with the National Guard as well. And if he doesn't respond adequately, then maybe he should be deposed through an election. Deposed might be the wrong word. But the whole point of this is that law enforcement is at the mayoral level. Mayors are effectively the chief executive officers of law enforcement. So LAPD, counties, I think, are oftentimes run by commissions or county commissioners. But the point is that at the county level, if there's county property that's being burned, then the sheriff's office responds. If it's at the city level, the city responds. If the city can't handle it, they can call in the county. They can handle local events. And if it gets out of hand, then the governor, at the request of the mayor, can dispatch the National Guard. These are not threats to liberty within the United States of America, because these are the natural parts, in my opinion, of local governance. The National Guard is at the state level, the law enforcement agencies are at the municipal level, and the federal military is at the federal level. Now, the federal military can be deployed and was deployed to protect federal property. And the reason why Trump was allowed to get away with deploying the Marines was because he deployed them exclusively to protect federal property. But the whole point of this is that, in my opinion anyways, that you have these three brackets of things, because the federal military ultimately is a threat to liberty. That's the whole point. All you have to do is read the Founding Fathers. All you have to do is read like Federalist 29 and Federalist 46 for the way that they view the balance between the militia and a standing army. You can see the Founding Fathers having complete hostility to a standing army. And so right now, while Andrew can make this line of argumentation of like, well, what's the bad that really occurred? Well, the bad that's really occurred is that you've normalized dispatching the federal military for state level and city level crises. That's the problem. That's something that's been talked about not only by our founding fathers, but it's been talked about by nearly every president who dealt with a domestic disturbance in the first place. So realistically, like, Andrew Wilson should love Lincoln. He should love Lincoln. I don't know how he feels about Abraham Lincoln. Maybe he loves Lincoln. But Lincoln used the federal military when the states moved away from the Union. He used the federal military in order to squash the states, in order to bring about, number one, an end to their rebellion against the United States of America, but also to end the institution of slavery. So I don't know how he feels about that. I would love the opportunity to ask him about it, but he should be like, based off of his current line of argumentation, he should fucking love Abraham Lincoln. He should be like, that's the best thing that ever happened. I hate slavery and I love federal power. So, so what is it? Abraham Lincoln burning the South and slash and burning all the way down the Mississippi and burning Atlanta was actually awesome. That'd be great. That'd be something I'd love to ask him.
Well, I think
doesn't that seem like it's well within the purview? Hang on, let me finish the question. I'm almost done.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think that's well within the purview of the executive under Article 2?
No, so specifically
what subsection? Article 2 is huge.
The reason that I said it was an example of an erosion between state and federal power is Trump was federalizing the National Guard at the behest of the head of the state.
That's only supposed to happen when the governors request it.
That being Governor Newsom, when he didn't have the authority to. It violated that.
He does have the authority to federalize.
Well, Section 12406 that he cited in his executive order to try and federalize the National Guard states explicitly that those powers shall be granted through the governor of the state, that being Newsom. And Newsom felt like the National Guard wasn't needed in that instance.
The National Guard is they are.
Yeah, Dewey says Connor fears righteous piracy. No, I don't. As a matter of fact, I would welcome the opportunity to go. If somebody was to walk up to me, Dewey's talking about the Red Sea crisis, where the country of Yemen is currently blockading. What is it? The Strait of Hormuz, something like that. They're blockading a 30-mile wide area, in the Red Sea in order to block commercial shipping. So for me, no, I would, if I didn't have a family and some contractor was like, hey, we're gonna let you get on a commercial vessel. We're gonna give you drone jammers. We're gonna give you assault rifles, and we're gonna give you the ability to kill Somali pirates, and we're gonna give you the ability to use a shotgun to shoot down Houthi drones. I if I didn't have a family, I'd be all about that shit. I think that would be an awesome job to sail through the Red Sea armed to the teeth, protecting international shipping and killing pirates. It would be awesome.
PIs, they are government issue. It is true that the state can deploy them, but ultimately they serve the behest of the president of the United States.
No, they're
Fuck that. He's saying National Guard is like naturally under the chain of command of the federal government. No, it's only supposed to be under the federal government during emergencies. What's the chain of command for the National Guard? Let's go ahead and verify this just so I'm not like chatting shit out of my ass. Federal, National Guard chain of command. National Guard chain of command has both state and federal aspects, with state governors commanding units for state missions and the President of the United States having the authority to federalize the Guard for national missions. At the federal level, the chief of the National Guard Bureau is a senior advisor to the President's Secretary of Defense and a member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Okay. For state level operations, the state governor is the top authority and the state adjutant general. So let's do examples of federal. What are federal missions of the National Guard? Because they were actually, believe it or not, they were called into service and deployed in Iraq. The federal mission of the National Guard is to serve as a trained and ready reserve force for the U.S. military, providing units and personnel for national defense and overseas military operations as directed by the presidents. This includes deploying soldiers and airmen for combat, support roles, and specialized missions, as well as contributing to Homeland Security through operations like airspace security and counter-drug efforts. So Homeland Defense. The Guard also supports Homeland Defense through a range of missions, including counter-drug operations and providing specialized response capabilities for events involving weapons of mass destruction. When activated for federal missions, the President of the United States exercises command and control over the National Guard. So I want to know that there's obviously going to be a legalistic thing. It's probably here that's going to discuss when the National Guard can be activated for federal missions. The federal missions are not law enforcement. The National Guard, I don't think, is allowed to do law enforcement. Now, they're allowed to do like security. And what I mean by that is, let's say that there's a federal building that's under attack and it doesn't make sense to mobilize the Marines or other federal DOD personnel, Department of War personnel, in order to secure the building. National Guard is a hybrid of state and federal power. So you mobilize the National Guard in order to protect that resource. That, I think, would be like a federal mission. But if you were having National Guard troops patrolling American cities at the behest of the President of the United States in order to deter and or detain people committing crimes, I actually do not know if they've been vested with the authority to do that. I unironically do not know and think it's like antithetical to posse comitatus. Posse comitatus, let's go ahead and look that up real quick. Posse comitatus. This is how you lose a republic, by the way. Posse comitatus is Latin for power of the county and refers to both the historical concept of citizens being conscripted by a sheriff to enforce the law and a federal law prohibiting the use of U.S. military personnel for civilian law enforcement. The Posse Comitatus Act of 1878 prohibits the use of federal military personnel for domestic law enforcement purposes, enacted, I just said that. The Posse Comitatus Act explained. The Posse Comitatus Act bars federal troops from participating in civilian law enforcement except when expressly authorized by law. This nearly 150-year-old law embodies an American tradition that sees military interference in civilian affairs as a threat to both democracy and personal liberty. However, recent events have revealed dangerous gaps in law's coverage that Congress must address. What does the term Posse Comitatus mean? In British and American law, a Posse Comitatus is a group of people who are mobilized by the sheriff to suppress lawlessness in the county. In any classic Western film, when a lawman gathers a posse to pursue the outlaws, they are forming a Posse Comitatus. The Posse Comitatus is so named because one of the things it prohibits is using soldiers rather than civilians as a Posse Comitatus. So you guys could read this, but the whole point is that you're supposed to separate law enforcement from the military explicitly so you don't become an authoritarian dictatorship. So the fact that Andrew Wilson is like, oh yeah, it's chill. Okay, well, you've just conceded that Trump is consolidating power and using the federal government to assert authority over local thing. I think that whether or not anybody realized it, he just conceded the debate. The debate should move to, okay, we understand that he centralized power. We understand that he's using federal troops against the Posse Comitatus Act in order to try to enforce civilian law, which he almost admits to through his line of argumentation, without declaring, what is it? There's like an Insurrection Act or something like that. You can declare the Insurrection Act. That's one of the exceptions of the Posse Comitatus law. So he should say, oh yeah, he's consolidating power, but it's a good thing. That's where the debate should move.
Police. They belong to the state. They're under the purview of the
Oh,
governor.
okay. So the federal government can't mobilize the National Guard for the purpose of war, and neither can the president. Is that correct?
No, they can, but they have to do so. Specifically, there's a differentiation between state level and federal level missions. And then the state level, it looks like, I don't know, like drug interdiction or something was one of the exceptions. I'm interested.
Well, they can, but there has to be a process for it. There has to
Oh.
Ooh, go Corbin, go.
I see.
powers.
What
Under
process?
section
What process?
12406,
Mhm.
under section 12406 that Trump cited in his executive order as to why he had the ability to federalize the National Guard and deploy them to LA, states explicitly that those powers shall be granted through the governor of the state. And Gavin Newsom did
True, get him.
not give Trump consent to federalize the National Guard.
He doesn't need consent. He's the commander in chief. He can send in the Marines if he wants.
Okay, but under that
yeah.
under that
Well,
statute,
so what you're saying
under
is
that
that
exact
Right here, dude. Right here. Right here. If we were going to have an argument about you need, like effectively, like I'm not saying Corbin's not going to do it, but you need to bring up Posse Comitatus now.
statute,
I'm going
that
to
Trump
grant.
had
I'm actually
cited-
going to grant this. So I'm actually going to grant that there was a process error here. Let's just grant it for the sake of it and say that you're right that there's a process error. Trump is the commander. Trump is the commander. Hang on.
Andrew,
Calm down.
Andrew,
Calm down, bro. Calm down. I'll grant the argument. Okay. You're
Hold on,
gonna
I've
out.
let
All
it
right.
speak.
Go ahead.
Oh, I've let you speak
Okay.
a lot.
Go ahead.
The reason, wait, fuck, I lost my train. Never mind. Do your thing. I lost my train of thought.
Are you sure? Okay. See,
Yeah,
you
I
should
left
just
my
let me
train
finish.
Sacred Snow, thank you for renewing your membership. I parasocially love you. Quick shill before we continue. Like the stream, share it with your friends, engage in chat. I parasocially love you. Thank you for being here. Super chats and memberships if you got them.
Finish, bro. I would have let you have all the time in the world to talk. So anyway, the point here is that yes, Trump's a commander in chief.
It's missing the penis. I gotta go back. No way. No way. Okay. Let's make it reasonable, okay? You know, he's not hard right now. What's the you guys are so bad. Oh my god. Okay, so hold on. So testes are for what, like hormonal regulation? Dang, that's too much erasing. Okay, testes are for hormonal regulation, right? So what would hormonal regulation be? I guess it would be like training, right? Like law enforcement and military training, hormonal balance. Oh, we could make this progenitive. So the testes, I would say, are training academia in schools. That's what I would say. It's raising the next generation. It's regulating the culture. So training, education, academia are the testes, and then I guess the penis can be the pronatal. The pronatal structure through which society revives itself. Pronatal / cultural conservatism that propagates the society. Sorry. All right. So for those of you who have no idea what's going on because you're not looking at the screen, okay? So what happened is I did the political corporatism, which is conceptualizing the government and the nation state as a human body. And by the way, I'm a political corporatist. I think that you should look at systems as if the United States was a holistic being, and you should regulate is a weird word. Regulate, oftentimes people mean it in a legalistic sense, but there's also an interpretation of it that just means regulate means to like train or make normal or to keep a regular schedule, right? That's the way that I'm using regulate. So there's a degree to which I think that like culture can be toxic and destructive. And so I think like culture should be regulated to be pro-social and pro-society. Now, of course, we should do this within a free framework. So if somebody wants to make some piece of artwork that's controversial, that's antisocial, that's weird, they should be allowed to do so, but they can be criticized within the pro-social cultural framework. Then same thing with skin. Somebody asked about like shingles. Shingles would obviously be like, let's say that was like the skin attacking itself or the skin being dysregulated in some way. That would just be like a shitty military, right? I'm trying to think of what else. But the somebody brought up in chat, they were like, you didn't draw the third leg, of course, talking about somebody's phallus, somebody's testes. And so I would say since testes are a hormonal regulation, that they're effectively training, education, and academia. And then I would say that since the penis is the way in which humans propagate, then it's a pronatal cultural conservatism that propagates the society. So for instance, like half of you are degenerates who don't want kids, and so you're not going to be a part of the perpetuation and propagation and revivification of society. Whereas if you help mentor the next generation, even if you don't have kids, if you help mentor the next generation, if you help raise them right, if you try to culturally educate them, et cetera, then that's going to be a perfectly valid way to do things. So yeah, I think that's how I would describe the penis. Now, it looks like we're a little bit lower than usual, and I appreciate you guys for hanging out. So I'm not like criticizing what's going on, but is there something happening right now that's hot? I see the United States Courts of Appeals. I don't think I lost viewers for that. I don't see Destiny live. I don't see Pisco live. I don't see Hutch live. Sometimes Lonerbox will take a chunk out of my audience, which is fine. Lonerbox is an excellent creator. I'm not complaining. Obviously, people vote with their feet, but I am curious if there's something else that's live, that's going on, that's hot, that I'm going to need to react to in the next 24 hours. Because it's just so hot that people are checking it out. So if somebody knows the hot thing that's going down, let me know. Anyways.
Chief. So when I look at Article 2, I mean, he can broadly do what he wants with the military. I mean, he can pretty broadly do that. Him sending in the National Guard, him sending in the Marine Corps, I think he did have executive authority to do. Not only that, I'm not even sure that if I were to grant to you that there was some process error here, how that would necessarily be an him accumulating power to himself. Even if there was a process error, that doesn't seem like an accumulation of centralizing authority. The president already is the commander in chief. Already.
Yeah, but you would say that if he ignores process in order to achieve results that the laws don't allow him to do, then yeah, like that's obviously him accumulating power with which he's not invested. So I think Corbin and Vince can press him right now if they wanted to.
I don't know if I would categorize it as a processing error. I would say it's a direct violation of the statute that he himself cited as to having power to deploy the National Guard.
Do you think that Trump himself sat down in an office and read through all of this? Or do you think that he was reliant on people around him to tell him what authorities he has and doesn't have?
I don't think Trump gives a shit.
Trump's administration, it's the same thing.
Okay, so you think that there's people around him who sat down with him and explained that he has the set authorities, right?
No, I think Trump said that he wanted to do something and then he did it, and damn the consequences. It's the same thing with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. It's the same thing with the National Guard. Christ, I should have been in this debate.
Can you answer my question? Yeah, sure. So that doesn't sound to me like the process of a person who's trying to accumulate maximum amounts of power to himself, but rather a person who's utilizing. Hang on, man. Let me make the point, and then he can respond. Okay.
So Trump isn't trying to accumulate power, but his administration is. Is that what you're talking?
Okay. So Doobie says, no, that's not a fair response in my opinion. The criticism isn't that you talk to him, it's that you're his friend. Okay, well, my friendship goes beyond bad behavior. Promote him. That's not necessarily happening. And are building a regular show with him, ? So let's write that down. Let's deal with it. Deal with it on its face. I trust Doobie to have a steel man. So let's do a new one. Sure, save levels of military authority. And we're going to let this fly for a little bit longer. Corbin and, I owe Corbin and Vince my breakdown. So we're going to let it fly for like another, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes or so. But we'll move into the next content shortly. I try to do about 2 hours on each content segment, and we're hitting about 2 hours right now. Not specifically on the content. We did spend 45 minutes just chatting shit, but still. Then let's write down what Doobie said, and let's contend with what he's actually saying. The criticism isn't that you talk to him. It's that you're his friend. It's that you promote him. It's that you're building a regular show with him. Okay. And then there's a second thing here. Doobie says, the issue is you're too honest. When you say things like, without him, it would take me an extra 5 years to get where I want to with my platform, it gives people the impression that's what drives the close connection. I mean, that's just like descriptively true, though. So let's do it without him. Without him, it would take 5 years to get where I want to go, where I want to go. All right, so let's do this. So number one, with the friend thing, this is going to be like weird for some of you guys, but I have shitty friends. Okay. I won't get into too much detail, I guess. I'll accept this as a criticism. Let's accept this as a criticism. Check. I'm internet friends with Lauren Southern. I also think Lauren Southern, no offense, Lauren, is also an R-slur. Okay. We don't talk that much anymore, but we used to talk a healthy chunk of the time. But with Lauren, what has she done? She was a queen of the dissident right. She's made 2 documentaries that I assisted with, by the way. And I felt like the parts that I had control over were pretty good, but I also didn't like the parts that I didn't have control over. There was some like race realist bullshit in there that I really didn't like, but that's okay. Then I think that she effectively played footsie with Nazis for like 5 years to 10 years. And that she ultimately was a part of the leopard eating faces party. And then she got her face eaten by leopards. There are 10,000 reasons to criticize Lauren Southern, and I'll admit to all of them. She probably had premarital sex. She's probably done drugs a few times. She had a child with like the first person that she met who, from her moral system, I think she's kind of a race realist. I think that person wasn't exactly a pure Aryan person. And so she had a child, she got divorced, which is obviously a big no-no in conservative circles. She hid her divorce for 3 or 4 years. She hooked up with Steven. She's done plenty of bad shit. But if Lauren was like, hey, are we friends? I'd be like, yeah, of course. And that's just like internet friends. In real life, like I said, I have a friend who's pretty much a Christian nationalist Nazi. I have a couple of friends that I've known since high school that are communists that I still hang out with. One of them's unironically like a dirtbag leftist communist, and I hate his guts, but I've known him since high school, so I'm still his friend. I have a friend who used to be a coke dealer, but he quit the game and he moved into information technology. God bless him. I have a bunch of infantry friends who have killed people. I have a bunch of alcoholic friends. I have a bunch of drug addicted friends. So again, so if you're saying like you're his friend, I agree that you can dislike that about me. I agree with that. That's fine. Then promote him. Okay. This one, I'm gonna half agree with the criticism. Okay. Where I'm gonna agree with the criticism, I'm gonna make it a small check, but I'm also gonna put like a red X, is I want Steven to be better. Okay. I do. I want him to stop gooning. He says that he's stopped since 2023, but I don't know if that's true because realistically, he didn't even know he was in trouble until what? November 29th, 2024. He didn't even know he was in trouble until November 29th, 2024. So he might not have even known that he needed to modify his behavior until 2024. And he has a lot of self-destructive tendencies. I think him hanging out with food shops is fucking stupid. And so promote him. It's like, yeah, I'm pushing him to be a better person. I'll agree with that. Then building a regular show with him, I would put that in the half true criticism thing again, where I would say, yeah, if Steven was like, hey, once a month, I want to go shoot guns and I want to talk shit on stream, then I'd probably be like, yeah, okay. Unless you're like an actual pedophile, you know, unless you actually fuck kids. Sorry for being so vulgar about it. Then I would probably do that. So I would expect that would make that uncomfortable. But the whole point of the show isn't going to be going onto the show and then glazing him and then being like, oh wow, Steven, you're so amazing, you're so perfect, you never do anything wrong. You know, you're just like the best guy. You're just like the best guy ever. It's like, no, it's going to be like the last show that we did together, where I effectively say like, hey, I think you hanging out with food shops is effing R-slurred. And I don't get it. I think it's stupid. I think it's counterproductive. I think it hurts your long-term goals. I think it's unnecessary. I think you're hurting people who don't need to be hurt, like Doobie. So yeah. Then the without him, it would take 5 years to get there. That's just true. That's just true. If I go into my content mill, let's say that I go into my own Fortress arc, I'm normally at like 100 to 150 viewers, depending on what I'm covering. I don't know if the debate is too dry or something. I don't know if there's something else big going on right now, but I'm a little low today. So I don't know if there's like a big drama going on, but it's just true. I'm 100 viewer Andy, right? I don't know if I have the streaming temperament. I don't know if this is an off day. I don't know if I'm talented enough. The truth be told, there's a lot of really not talented streamers. So I don't think it's a talent issue. I think it's like a longevity issue. You just need to be able to create content for super... Oh, sorry. This is a part of the same box. This is true. But I work with a ton of people that help me get where I want to go. I worked with PV. I don't align with them 100%. I worked with Brianna Wu. I don't agree with Brianna Wu 100%. I worked with who else? I worked with Lauren Southern. I don't agree with Lauren Southern 100%. So again, like I don't really agree with this, that like any one of these individually are necessarily bad. You can dislike me. Excuse me. You can dislike me. You can not engage with my content. You can think I'm an asshole. But this criticism, I think, is perfectly valid. You're friends with a bad person. Okay, I understand. Promote him, I feel like, is a mixed bag, because I'm trying to push him on the bullshit that I think that he's doing wrong. Building a regular show with him, I would, but it's to push him on the bullshit that I think he's doing wrong. Without him, it would take another 5 years to get. This is true of this is true of like a shitload of my relationships in the space. You know, I like Josiah. I like pondering politics. I am talking to him in the background about projects. Josiah figured out his niche and is kicking ass within his niche. So I'm going to work with Josiah, not just because I like him and I think he's a good dude. He's infinitely more wholesome than Steven is. But I think Josiah is going places, and I want to go places too. I don't think that's a sin. This might be like a sin within like a leftist framework where like You have to have, or like an American framework where you have to have this like rugged individualism where you can only care about poor people, where you can only care about working class people who make it on their own. That's not me. I don't care. I'm a capitalist. I'm a free market person. If I have friends that can help me get where I want to go, I want them to help me get where I want to go. And if I can help other people get where they want to go, Corbin Sayles as an example, Vince Wilson as an example, I'll help them do whatever they want to do. Tiberius, Samantha Banana, Osiris, any of these other creators that I've worked with who are smaller, if they needed help from me, I'm going to help. So I parasocially love you. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.